All right, guys. So we need to talk about the two most popular horror films of the year so far, which is Backrooms and Obsession. Now, again, these have been getting a lot of buzz. They've kind of been changing the way we see media and film. However, we kind of have to discuss which one did it a little bit better. Is it Obsession or is it Backrooms? Joining me to discussion, I got my friends out here. We got Crystal and we got OC. So before we get in, I guess we can just discuss. I guess we'll start off with movie we liked first, and then we'll go into the pros and cons of each film, and then we kind of come back to the resolution of why we think these are the better films. So we'll start with OC. Which one did you prefer more, Obsession or The Backrooms?
Okay. Uh, I feel like I keep going back and forth, honestly, but I think that ultimately I would put Backrooms above Obsession as like the
Mm,
overall better film. Um,
interesting.
but it's not like it's a crazy big gap for me. I think that they were both very good, very well made films, and I enjoyed both of them. You know.
Okay. What about you, Crystal?
Okay. As like the resident horror person here, I have to like
Exactly.
first say I don't really like how you pose this question, like which is the better film. I feel like Obsession and Backrooms is apples and oranges for me. I mean, they're in different, like they're both horror, but I feel like, they're not just because they're in the horror sphere doesn't mean that they are like the same. Like even like genre wise, like they're kind of different types of horror.
Hmm.
Um, but that being said, before we go really into it, I just want to kind of say which one I enjoyed more because I think like contextually, when you think about the kind of like low budget nature of these movies and like how they were made too, like I'm taking that into consideration. So for me personally, I enjoyed Obsession more. I think it has more like rewatchability and like I have like multiple reasons for that, but I'm with OC saying like the gap is also very small. I enjoyed both a lot. I think they both have things that can be celebrated about them. But yeah, for me, Obsession has the edge between the two.
For sure, for sure. I think for me, um, is I guess when I say better, I mean better usually just goes to which one you prefer more. And I can see your point that they both have their strengths, and I'm glad you brought that up with Backrooms. I mean Obsession with the whole idea of the low budget nature of it. So that does play an element. But for me, and I'm kind of with OC because I do go back and forth with it. But I think right now I'm going back with Backrooms just because I went to rewatch both of them, and I found like when I rewatched both of them, I found more things that I really enjoyed more about Backrooms than I did about Obsession. I feel like Obsession, the first time I was watching it, I would say Obsession, but I think Backrooms changed my mind the second
Mhm.
time. So that's why I'm kind of going back with you guys, like, all right, guys, I'm changing splits. So we'll see what happens. But I guess let's start off with Obsession because that one started first. That one changed the game. I guess let's start off with the strengths of Obsession. What do we thought was the strengths of this movie? Because this movie definitely did a lot of things for us.
I think that
Yeah,
we kind
for
of
sure.
we just got done talking about Supergirl, and one of the criticisms that we had for that movie was that it felt like it was kind of rote in terms of like there was nothing new that was done really with the movie, but like in contrast to those criticisms, I feel like with Obsession, you have a story that is not like doing anything new relatively, but it's still like it does such a good job engaging you that it almost doesn't matter that there's nothing, like there's not much here that is novel. Like it's almost
Mhm.
one of the most classic stories where it's like a wish that you have kind of goes out of, that's literally every like genie story that we know,
Yeah.
or like three wishes stories. Like you have a wish and you think you want this thing, but then like the wish kind of ends up going off the rails. But the way that it's done in Obsession was just, it was so masterfully done that
Yeah.
it engaged you the entire time. And so I guess that goes to show that it's not, you don't necessarily need like a fresh new story or to be doing new things in order to make a great movie. You kind of just it's in how it's done,
Yeah.
for lack of a better word or term.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head because it's like, as a horror fan, I recognize that a lot of horror is derivative. So it's like horror fans, they go into a horror film and it's like you kind of like know what to expect going into it. So it's like more like you want to be like surprised and you want to have fun. Honestly, like if like the story beats aren't there, if there's some stuff you have to like suspend your disbelief for, it's fine as long as it's fun and it's done well, which Obsession did. And like you said, like if the story is like, oh, be careful what you wish for, like it's been done before. I mean, like even like was it like last year Osgood Perkins did The Monkey, which is like almost the same thing, like be careful what you wish for. There's like an entity, it's supernatural based, it's not just like a slasher. Um, that said, I feel like you guys are kind of like outliers in my sphere because everyone at like that has this discussion between Backrooms and Obsession says that they like Obsession more, but they love
Mm,
both, which is like it
mm,
seems to be. So it seems like now that you guys are like kind of admitting that you like Backrooms more now, I feel like it's like maybe like evening up, and that's just like a testament to like how much people want like good horror and can appreciate like horror when it's done well. So I don't know, I just have to like thank like both movies for like existing like in this timeline right now because
Yeah.
it
yeah,
like it seems like people are getting a
yeah.
lot of enjoyment out of it. Um, I know we're just talking about Obsession. Another thing that I really liked about it was just like that there were a bunch of like unknowns coming into it with like super genuinely good performances. I mean,
Mhm.
you look at Backrooms and you have Chiwetel Ejiofor, and then we have Renata Rensive, who are like, I love them actually. I love Renata Rensive, and I think she's like a very good actress. And they're both, we know like their whole body of work, and they're like heavy hitters. Like they're not gonna do a bad performance. But coming into Obsession, totally unfamiliar faces, and like they were acting kind of like very hungry. And yes, there are some camp moments, but again, as a horror fan, you can't really do anything but appreciate those, especially like if they're kind of like balls to the wall, like crazy moments. So like that's just like a plus for me when there's like really well done camp with like good timing that kind of like fits into like the ridiculous nature of the film. Um, I also want to admit too, going into Obsession, I watched it really early. I think I watched it before like anyone that I knew,
Ooh,
and I avoided trailers. I did see one clip, and it's the clip of them in the restaurant where
same.
Nikki freaks out about, I thought we were having a nice date. And I went into the film thinking it was not a horror. I actually thought it was going to be a thriller, like a slasher, like a
Oh.
guy that was
Mm,
like, "Oh, I'm dating this girl. Oh, but she's crazy, and like me and my friends have to like survive her craziness." I actually
Mm.
didn't know there was going to be like supernatural horror elements with like actual jump scares and actual like horror sound design and music. So I was like really surprised and pleasantly
mm,
surprised. I feel like it's such a classic like horror jump scare film. It really is like a return to form to like low budget jump scare horror, but done in like new, like modern fun ways by like a young creative team. So like I really have
mm.
to like, tip my hat to like the entire cast and crew of that film.
For
Nice.
sure,
Yeah.
for sure. I think for me, what I really going back to the acting, I think the acting really, really like stole it for me, especially with the girl who plays Nikki. I think like I'm really rooting for her because rumor has it that she's only going to be cast in the Oscars as supporting, but I think she should be nominated for like lead because I think her performance really was just really well. For me, I really loved her performance, and I feel like she really carried the movie as well as all the actors. Like I feel like
She's
these are
like a
kind of
co-lead. That's really weird. But if
yeah.
she's like the only one being nominated, then I wouldn't even know
Either
how
way, I
else it
think
could
she should
go.
either way, she should have been nominated as lead. Hopefully, they change that. But point here for me, it's like I felt like these are actors that I feel like I could have just watched anything with them and I would enjoy it because I feel like they could just carry anything, and that's how I feel because the story, although I agree with you, the story doesn't really do too much difference, but there is a nuance to it that I think that I will want to pay to it is that I do love that they did the subversion of tropes. Where,
Mhm.
for example, Bear being like the nice guy trope being turned evil, while Nikki's like the crazy girlfriend trope turned as a victim. I did think that that was a cool twist. Despite that, you could say that we've seen these things done in other mediums. I do think it was cool to see that kind of twist. And I felt like, especially because I've pushed my thoughts on TikTok about it. One thing I really do feel like this movie does well is it kind of reflects kind of the Gen Z experience of how they feel about dating and like their horrors about dating. So I kind of felt like this was sort of a interesting like an interesting scoop of what they're feeling, and now I get like the whole idea of like, okay, the ambiguousness of like who likes who, all that stuff, which to me it seems a little childish, but at the same time I also have to remember that I'm a little bit older, so like seeing that this is from a young crew and then that these people are like the director is 26 and all that, it's like, okay, this is a cool refreshing trick and refreshing taste and seeing a different
Sh-
perspective. So
Sure. It's just
I
about being love bombed, being gaslit. I'm just kidding.
yeah, yeah, but
So
like,
funny.
but even then, it's like again, like just the idea of like just like not knowing that level of ambiguousness to it, that kind of
Mhm.
mystery of it. So I think that was a cool. Overall, I really appreciate that, and I am happy to see that this movie made so much in the box office. In fact, it's like it's making more than Supergirl. Like that's and Supergirl had a higher budget, not to take down Supergirl or whatever. So that
Yeah.
tells me a lot, and I do appreciate it for that.
I think
So I
people,
guess
yeah. I think people yearn
sorry.
for that kind of like film project type feel in films where it's like it feels like a passion project. It's like a dude with his friends, like trying to make the best movie that he can make with the trust that they have from the studio. And yeah, they just like knocked it out of the park. So I'm just really proud of them, and I'm like really happy about the excitement that both films kind of like brought back to like horror films and horror media.
All right, so next we're gonna do the Backrooms. So OC, what was your praises for that movie?
My praise for that movie really hangs on the shoulders of the actors. I think that the performances were fantastic. Chiwetel Ejiofor, and you said the other woman, her name was Renee or Renata,
Renate,
Renate.
Renata,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think they both did such fantastic jobs in this film, and I think that one of the interesting aspects of the film is that it did feel kind of in counter to Obsession. The
Oh,
story of it, like minus the online memes and everything like that, is is fairly fresh. Like I don't think that there's really a lot of. I mean, I guess if you strip down the story, it's like about a man having to really face his interpersonal like demons and whatnot, and so like that is not new. But like I think that the skin that you have on top of it with like this plot of kind of finding, it's almost like a Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but like weird, like a weird in
sure.
terms of like you slip into this like alternate dimension that you can kind of you know explore, and like has its own kind of lore that exists within it, and you're trying to figure out or discover what's going on. I thought that it was very interesting, and it felt fresh watching it. So
Mhm.
yeah, and yeah, I'll leave it at that. I think that there's a lot of really good stuff to be said about Backrooms.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Crystal?
I think, yeah, I think a lot of that I agree with. The performances were awesome. I like the story too. Like you said, it's fresh. We're dealing with like liminal transitive spaces where it's like, you know, if you're in the back rooms, like maybe you could be like stuck as like a monster, but it's like you have to like face your demons and all that if you want to like come out of this alive and all that. And really, you can like take any kind of interpretation with it because they leave it pretty open-ended and up to everyone's interpretation. And because it's such a fresh new idea, people can play around with like, oh, like who is that, like, uh, like organization that's like studying the back rooms at the end. Like, really, it's like opening up these possibilities to explore like more backrooms lore, which is great because you have like a lot of it that exists already, like in the games and in the short films, and like they definitely like respect that kind of like what do they call it? That kind of like VHS horror vibe that like the YouTube short films have, but they do
Hmm.
it well. There's still like really exciting like scenes in it because I feel like that kind of horror there's like a name for it. It's like Skinamarink is like in the same genre, right? But where Skinamarink I think fell short is that like nothing happened in that film, and
Mm,
it was like more of like an aesthetic and a vibe.
hmm.
Whereas like the Backrooms is like things were actually happening. We were following like actual stories, and there was like like an incredible chase scene, and I love like the design of like the creatures, like the
Yeah.
pirates, and also like the other guys in the back rooms that he was eating. Everything was like really unsettling and scary looking, and you can see it like in broad, not daylight, but broad like backrooms light. Like you can see them clearly, and it's like scary and unsettling.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, I think those are like my main praises for it. I mean, a lot can be said for the film. I think it's just like a very well made film. And I have a lot to look forward to, I feel like, in the whole Backrooms franchise stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, again, I really do love the concept. Like it again, and it makes sense because it's a video game, but that's how I felt. Like honestly, to me, it kind of reminded me of sort of like Mario 64 because he goes into the walls and he's in like a new dimension and everything looks all deranged and stuff. So I thought that was such a cool concept to do a horror film about. And then I love how it was like 90s because it also brings a new aesthetic to it because it's 90s, there's a certain time period, whatnot. And I definitely do love the exploration of his character as well. I like that the actor's Nigerian. That's why one of my jokes is just Clark's not crazy, he's just Nigerian. It's just like there's just so much things that I guess I can kind of self-relate to it. But also one thing I do liked about it that I think was a nuanced twist was therapy. Because like a lot of times when we have therapy, it's always like seen as like, okay, the therapist can fix the person. The therapist could, heal the person. But here we kind of see from this new lens of the therapist saying, you know what, I really like I can't fix you, bro. Like you're messed up, bro. And it's just like you don't want to be fixed. And I kind of like that because it's like in the generation we live now where it's like everyone expects is like, therapy to help them and everything. A lot of
Sure.
times it is sort of like a lot of times the people who go for help really don't really want help. They just want to be validated. And that's how I felt with this, where it's just like this character
Mm.
Yeah.
just wants to feel right about
Yeah.
himself. That's what it
Yeah. I
is. It's
think
not
that,
just about. So
yeah, that's an
I'm kind of
interesting,
glad that
yeah,
they
point.
add that kind of nuance or add that spin that we don't see enough in like movies and TV shows when it comes to this topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a cool
That's
thing
a
they
good
had.
point. Like a lot of people don't want to heal. They don't want to do the hard work. They just want to stay in the back rooms.
Mm.
Exactly. So that's something that I really appreciate about the film for the most part. And then like the cinematography was cool. Like there was some
Oh
cool
yeah.
directorial shots, all that stuff. So I really enjoyed the atmosphere from it. And again, at first it took me a while to get it because I did feel like there was so much stuff that kind of happens like
Mm,
back room, no pun intended.
yeah.
But later on, as I watched the second time, I started to understand it a little bit more. But that's enough for me. It's glazing the movie, I guess. If there's any
Yeah.
more things you
No,
want to
it
say.
it deserves to be glazed. I think okay, and then I looked it up because it was killing me, but this specific sub genre of horror is called analog horror. It's kind of gotten more
Okay.
popular kind of post 2000s because analog horror, like you said, kind of lends back to like the 90s kind of VHS, like found footage kind of like vibe. It really is like an aesthetic and kind of like a vibe thing where it's like, oh, like when you like wake up in the middle of the night and then it's like Nick at night and like the volume's really low and like you're just like super disoriented. Like that's the vibe
Mm.
that like analog horror goes for. And I feel like, you know, there's already like short films of like Backrooms and like Skinamarink on YouTube and like um they still did a good job of like not just like I don't know, falling for it, feeling like an extended short film. Like every single moment I think in the film was intentional and that like really leads up to like a pretty satisfying ending in the film, which is good. I feel like yeah, that's all yeah.
Yep. All right, guys. So now we're going for the dark turn, I guess, which is the shortcomings of these films. So we guess we got to start with Obsession. So what did you guys feel like could have been better, at least? If not that you didn't like it, just something that maybe could improve. At least you could say that for the movie. Starting with UOC.
Something that could be improved with Obsession. Um, that's a that's a hard one because okay, I will say that I think the pacing of the first act of the film was a little bit off. I definitely took a little it took a
Interesting.
little bit for me to kind of get into it. I think in terms of just like to capture my attention, I wasn't necessarily on board until that shot right after he makes his wish, and you see Nikki at her door, and she's blacked out with the light behind her. Like that shot, I think after that, I was like, okay, now I'm on board. Um, yeah, with like what was
I,
happening.
in
Uh,
defense, I still think that was kind of intentional because it turns into a different movie after that.
fair,
Like
fair.
truly. I
Yeah.
think that was intentional. That being said, like, you had your moment to glaze. I think I wouldn't change anything. Honestly, I enjoyed it that much. It excited me that much. Even if it's imperfections, I'd take because, like, I think changing any element of it might not make it the lightning in a bottle movie that it was. And I mean, it's kind of proven its success over and over again. So I wouldn't really like change anything. I think any movie could be improved, but I wouldn't
Mhm.
touch this one.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay.
I think yeah, in terms of just like, because I think I'm like trying to log all the movies that I see now on Letterboxd. And so to be fair, it's not like I gave it a perfect score. But I think that part of that it might just also be because those movies that I retain as giving perfect scores are not necessarily because I wouldn't change anything about the movie itself, but it might be because of how much it aligns with what I personally like. I'm drawn to, or what personally
Mm,
resonates with me. And so
yeah.
while appreciated this movie in a lot of different ways, and similarly to Crystal, there's not necessarily much that I would change about it. Just like in thinking about it, like again, just maybe like the pacing and tone of that first act, but realistically that's not a big issue. Like it's not a huge problem. um and so while there's not much that I would change about it, I think that just maybe because my inclinations or what resonates with me aren't necessarily in this film, it's why it doesn't get like a perfect 5 out of 5 stars for me on something like
Mm.
Letterboxd. But that doesn't mean that I necessarily have problems with it. So I guess it kind of like falls into that like in
Yeah.
between space for me.
It's like the nature of the content, the subject
Yeah,
matter,
yeah.
almost.
Mm,
Just fair.
I think for me, and maybe it's just because going back to what OC says about values, and this is a value for me, I feel like I would have loved to see more like substance to Bear's character as well as Nikki, because I feel like we didn't really get too much for me. Like I do feel like I wish we kind of like understand like like Bear, for example. We know he's a coward and that's kind of his flaw, but like it would have been interesting to see like what kind of led him to be that kind of thing, as well as like is like for Nikki, which you could
Yeah.
say that the point of it is the fact that obviously he's head over heels for her. So I can understand the point of it from that, but I also wish it was like we saw more to him liking Nikki beyond just like, oh, she's just a hot girl who's nice to him. I wish there was more of like,
Yeah.
okay, like more layers on that, as well as Nikki herself. Like, I really wanted to know more about her, and we don't get too much of her, and like again, what shaped her to be her. So
Yeah.
like stuff like that, I wish we could have more of for me, just because I value that in storytelling.
Yeah.
So like that's something about that. And like you can call this a little bit of a nitpick, but to be fair, this is kind of like a horror movie trope because you do mention that it's campy, so I guess I can see it as a campy element. But I
Yeah.
did find it a little bit weird that the moment where Ivan gets the $1 billion, I'm just thinking to myself, "Yo, Bear, can't you just use that $1 billion to help someone find a wish or something like that, or try to use
Yeah.
ChatGPT or something?" Like I get it, it's the campy horror thing where it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, what am I gonna do?" But
And those
for
are the
me,
moments, yeah, where you have to suspend your disbelief.
yeah.
I'll admit that.
For me, it was just like, because like, keep in mind, coming into this movie, everyone's calling it the great horror movie of the year. And
Yeah.
funny enough, this year I watched a lot of horror movies before that, or at least horror genre. Let's put it that way, because there could be a distinction between a real horror movie and a genre. And I just felt like watching stories that had that character stuff to it, and then not see it in this film, and this film has like the praise that it's getting. I was like, why can it not
Sure.
have that? So that
Sure.
that were little things for me, but like I said, it's not like it doesn't ruin the movie. Like it's not like, oh my
Yeah.
god, the movie's horrible because Bear didn't wish for $1 billion, like didn't use the $1 billion. Da, da, da. It
Yeah.
still works. It's just that someone who values story, like that's gonna be a thing where
Yeah.
if I don't see that, I'm gonna feel
Yeah, go for it.
That's fair. And like you can't make someone like camp. Like I understand that. Like if people time and time again are like, "Oh, you don't understand, it's camp," but it's like some people don't like that. Like I that's fair. But also to your first point though about like, "Oh, I wish we knew a little bit more about Bear and Nikki." I feel like there are little moments that are really easy to miss, at least for Nikki. Um like she has aspirations, like she's about to leave the city, like
Yeah,
she is her own person. And
yeah.
that kind of like, oh, us not knowing about them, I feel like is also, I don't know, I'm probably glazing it again, but I think that's still kind of intentional. I feel like that's part of the tragedy. Like they are really
Mhm.
young. Like these are like we're like 30. These guys are like barely in their 20s able to drink. I literally like that's everyone is like in their early 20s, like cast and crew, like outside of the film. um, and that's kind of the tragedy too. Like you said, it's like Gen Z dating. Like they should have been in the club, like, but they don't really have experience outside of like their friend group. They don't have the wisdom. Bear probably doesn't even really love Nikki. He loves the concept of Nikki, the
Yeah.
idea of Nikki that he made up in his head. And when she like when it turns into something different, like, he kind of reveals his true colors and all that, which is like what can happen in a lot of like real relationships. And I just think that kind of lends to the overall tragedy. Like they probably didn't even know themselves, like
Yeah.
the girl that, in the friend group that also got killed, like she barely getting into college. I just I still think that it was kind of like I keep saying intentional, but that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
I just wish we had, like I said, if not even like knowing much, but at least know, okay, what shape bear to be, like a little information of like what shape bear to like be a
Yeah.
coward. You know what I'm saying? Like that would have been a little bit interesting to get into it.
Sure. He was
So
just
I
like
yeah.
think like
pathetic guy.
that
There's
like again, I don't know. I just feel like there could have been more
mhm,
to that. That's my gripe with that, and just I don't know. Again, to be fair, like I said, it's just something I value. That's just what it
mhm,
is. And
Yeah.
I think my expectation was that since I was watching like movies like Holcomb or even like Send Help that or horror elements, well, Holcomb's definitely more horror, and they
mhm.
did stuff like that where they revealed through the time we revealed, okay, this is why this character was like in Holcomb, the character's an asshole,
Yeah.
but you realize why he's an asshole at some point in the story, and that's why he acts what he acts. I was expecting something like that to the story, but
Mhm.
again, it still works regardless of what I feel. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair.
One of the things when you talk about like criticisms, a criticism that I generally have for horror movies or something that kind of usually tends to turn me off is when you get to like the end or the conclusion of whatever the story is, and it seems like the evil wins. Like that usually rubs me the wrong way with horror movies.
I knew
Um,
you were gonna say that.
yeah, I mean, I've said it
That's your
before.
gripe with a lot of with a lot of horror films.
Yeah, yeah, I've said
I
that
think it was
before.
like
But I will say,
Hereditary and Smile.
yeah, no, Hereditary
But
is the
there's a
major, culprit in that whole thing.
but
Um,
and like this is again like I think back to like
that's
the
not,
content matter, the
yeah,
subject, because there
I'm
are
not
people who
necessarily saying that that's the
actually,
same thing here. I think that
yeah.
this movie kind of, I think it does something a little bit more interesting in terms
Okay.
of the evil is not necessarily the entity. I think the evil is Bear. Like
Yep,
and
hundred
you
percent.
realize that by like if you don't realize that in the onset of like him wishing that this girl like taking away agency from this girl in order for
Mhm.
to satisfy his own kind of like
Personal
carnal
needs.
desires to
Hmm.
for whatever, like if you don't realize that at the beginning, you realize that by the end when you you kind of get a sense of like what this entity that Bear released or unleashed on this girl has done to her and how it's ruined her life. And now um, you have these kind of ripple effects where it's not only destroying her life, but now all of these other people around have died as a result. And so,
Hmm.
and then in the end, of course, he doesn't get like his a happy ending. He doesn't really even get off the hook. He ends up dying and having to die
Yep.
as a result in order to release Nikki from that entity. And so I
Hmm.
think that in contrast to what my typical gripe is with a lot of horror movies, I don't feel like this horror movie did that in terms of like letting the evil win. I think evil kind of through Bear was you end up with this story being that like, oh, like this is, be careful with what you wish for, but also like don't be selfish, or like don't ignore the agency and the humanity of other
Hmm.
people in order
Yeah.
to gratify your own personal wishes and
Exactly.
desires at their
Like
expense.
the,
Yeah.
the evil is indifferent,
The evil
and
is
it's like
Yeah.
and it's also it's
the
something that
humans are
the
evil.
audience can identify with more easily. Like they can
Hmm.
see that evil that is kind of being displayed on the screen in their own life, because there are a lot of people, I would imagine, who would be watching this film and saying, oh, I know somebody who, if I had a wish, I would wish that that person would be in love with me, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so you're seeing this story play out, and by the end of it you're seeing the horrible results of what that wish brought in this situation. And so now the person watching that who might have had that thought is having to kind of face or wrestle with
Yeah.
that aspect of themselves. And so I think that it's very interesting, very well done in that sense. So yeah,
Yeah.
I get
Yeah,
that goes
that's a good
back.
observation.
Yeah, that goes
Yeah.
more
That was a
towards
really good
my
observation, you guys.
Yeah.
enjoyment of the film. Yeah.
Also, I feel like
I
those,
love
I'm
this
not gonna
film.
lie, they were kind of shitty friend group, bro. Because it's like
Oh
how
yeah,
much back
yeah.
secrets they were all holding from
Yeah,
each
They were
other.
all
It's just like, what?
yeah,
I love it. They
Like,
were just all messes. I mean, like they're in their early 20s. They should
yeah.
have been, they should have been at the club. Sad.
yeah, man. I'm just saying, man. Especially because of like, I would feel like personally, if they were like more good friends, they would do more for Nikki. But I was just like, damn, Nikki just got a shitty friend group, bro.
No, though it's crazy. Gen Z is a different breed. Like Love Island, like that's a horror film too, dude. Like the new
For
season,
sure.
It
For
really
sure. For
is.
sure.
It really
I guess
is.
it's an exception of that. You're right.
that's
But I
crazy.
guess we could go to Backrooms. I guess like what we could talk about the things that were problematic or things that could be improved. OC, you can start.
Again, I don't necessarily think that there's much that I would change in terms of back rooms. Um, to try to improve it. I guess if you apply my OC's horror movie rule to Backrooms as well, I don't think that there's necessarily an evil. I mean, if you want to say the Backrooms are the evil, but I don't. Eh, yeah, sure. And the Backrooms do win in the end, but I think the Backrooms being this sort of metaphor for internal turmoil and struggle. Um,
Mhm.
I don't necessarily know if that's something that didn't turn me off to it in the way that like you know that
Mm.
some other version of that might turn me off to it in a different story. So yeah, I don't necessarily know if there's much that I would change in the
Mhm.
back rooms. Maybe like more. I think that one of the most exciting parts of the Backrooms when I was watching it was when he brought his two assistants down into it with him,
Mm.
and like they were kind of like exploring it together, and like you had those those like frightening moments when they got stuck and stuff like that. Like maybe more stuff like that. I think we kind
Yeah.
of like right after that we jump forward to the therapist's perspective, and like now Clark, the main character, is fully engrossed in the back rooms, and so we kind of just a little bit more of the exploration of the back rooms. I think would have been fun to have, but other than that, I don't think that there's much that I would change.
Mm.
Yeah.
Crystal.
I agree. I feel like I wouldn't necessarily like change anything. And like my gripes are like really nitpicky. I think similarly to OC, because I love horror, like obviously like it could do with more scares, like more scary moments. Like when he explored the back rooms with his assistants. Um, and then to get a little nitpicky, I know this might even sound a little hypocritical, but I didn't really like the actors that were the assistants. They
Oh.
were like, I love camp, which is crazy that I'm saying this, but I think they were like a little bit overly campy tonally
Mm.
compared to like, because they're juxtaposed with, again, Chiwetel Ejiofor and Renate Rensive. So it was like jarring for me to see them like act with each other. They really seemed really weak,
Mm,
like in scenes with
Mm.
Chiwetel Ejiofor,
mm,
and that kind of took me out of it. Like I couldn't even be like properly scared in those scenes when they were exploring the back
Mm.
rooms. I hate to say it because like the young talent in Obsession was so good. I saw the Backrooms after Obsession. Like
Oh
I'm
wow.
like kind of I was like maybe unfairly comparing the
Yep.
actors.
Hmm.
Um, and it's like I'm sure they'll get better, but I was like that's my one nitpicky thing. Let me have that. But
For
yeah, I
sure.
don't think I would change anything, to be honest.
I think for me, what didn't really work for me well. So on one hand, I really love the therapy scene that they have in
Mhm.
the back rooms where it reveals why Clark is the way he is. On the other hand, I feel like there was too much telling and not showing because the only scene that we see him being like stubborn, all those other things was when he was having the therapy talk. We don't really
Mhm.
see that any other else. So to me, I really wish because to me the way I felt that move scene was because I'm gonna just suppose it to Obsession because we're comparing to Obsession. Me, it felt like that scene where Nikki comes out, like when they're at the party and Nikki kind of like has that what monologue that's supposed to insinuate incest or something like that whole scene right there and that stuff. And it's like supposed to be like the big character reveal kind of a moment. And I just feel like the way we got there didn't feel as earned because we didn't really see much of that besides the therapy thing. So it's almost like I'm being told that he's this stubborn whatever fool, or he's like, like
Yeah.
just all those flaws. I'm being told those flaws, but we hardly see those flaws. So that's
It's
the
almost like
only
exposition,
yeah,
verbal
exactly. That's the
exposition.
only thing that I had much of an issue with. And I guess pacing was a little bit like, it starts to pick up, but like it kind of like to me the pacing was a little off at the beginning for me. But besides that, yeah, I mean overall, like I said, watching it twice definitely had a better experience for me.
Yeah.
Watching the first time it was a little bit like, huh? And then it's like, okay, I get what they're doing, but it was like it felt more like a setup to what's gonna happen later than an actual
Mhm.
like character earned reveal to me. That's my take on that.
That's a okay. That's a good point. I can kind of see where you're coming from for that one. I want to like tack on to mine. I feel like I don't know. I keep like hating on these young actors. I feel kind of bad now, but like they were also like they gave them like funny lines too, and none of those landed for me. I did not like the comedy
Mm,
that they were attempting to do,
yeah,
and it's not like comedy doesn't have a place in horror. Like it definitely does. Horror is like funny. It's a fine line between
yeah,
horror and funny, like tragedy and
yeah,
Weapons did
comedy.
it great.
Um, I was
yep.
gonna yeah, Weapons was good. Another example I have to bring up is like Talk to Me, where it's like there
Yeah,
are full on like campy funny moments when they're like literally partying and stuff.
yeah.
But then it's like that's completely separate from like the vibes of like when they go full speed horror, where I feel like that scene, the scary scene when they're in the back rooms with them and like all that scary stuff's happening to the like assistants, they're still kind of like being a little like I don't know, like comedic or like can't be funny and like I just feel like that should have been like completely like removed or maybe like they
Mhm.
attempted to do that but the acting was so weak it still felt kind of like funny to me. I don't know, it just felt like something was like a little bit off with that scene and those actors. Sorry to those
Mhm.
actors.
For sure, for sure. I guess something funny because now we're talking about obsession. I want to actually, guys, hear your opinions on like some of the theories. So, first theory is like, did you really feel that the cat possessed Nikki? That was like the entity because that's theories going
The
on.
cat. And
No, but that's like funny. I love when people have like crazy theories. I don't think that, but that's really funny.
yeah, I don't. I mean, it's that's a funny idea, but yeah, I don't know if that
Yeah.
necessarily makes
Yeah,
the
throw
movie
another one
better.
at me because that's really
Yeah.
funny.
Okay, what about the whole thing that like, so you guys really believe that Nikki actually liked Bear? Because that's
I
the
think
whole
Mm,
like.
that she
So
actually
I want to
likes
hear everyone's
Bear.
take on. That
it's
he's
up
she's
to everyone's interpretation.
That's what they
I
say,
s-
but I'm curious
yeah,
based off the information given, do you believe she actually liked him and like would have dated him?
I think she didn't know. I think if you're young and you're 20, you can't really even really tell what your feelings are. And I think she might have been open to an idea of it if things had occurred naturally.
Mm,
But the tragedy of is it like they couldn't explore that and they like will never know. But I think like you can make an argument that she liked him or that she didn't like him. And honestly, I think could go either way. I would like believe both of them, like honestly.
Mm,
Yeah, I think. I mean, I don't think she was closed off necessarily. I think that
Hmm.
um, when we are looking at their interaction before the wish, like there's definitely a friendliness there, like there's a friendship there that exists that, in many cases could blossom into something more if that's what, was presented, and definitely depending on how it was presented. Coming from Bear, I think that he kind of was fumbling a lot with
mhm.
that car scene, and that kind of made it such that Nikki had to be like, "Hey, don't," she kind of laid down the hammer, like, "Hey, you shouldn't like me," blah blah blah.
Mhm.
But I do think that given the fact that they were friends, like they were in a friend group, if you know, if he had more game, let's put it like that, if he had more game,
He had more ribs.
yeah, yeah, I think that there definitely could have been something there, because she wouldn't,
Mhm.
if she was
Yeah.
like completely closed off to him, I don't think that like she would even really entertain
Like,
being alone with him, or like having him drive her home, like those little things, and like maybe yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And to give
Yeah.
credit where credit was due, the scene where they're talking in the bar, where I think you may be talking about, like where you're like, oh, does she like him? Does she not? Like even before he drives her home, um, they filmed like two versions of that scene, where one where she likes Bear, she's acting like she likes Bear, and one
Mhm.
version where she's acting like she doesn't like him or is like
Mhm.
pathetic to his feelings or anything like that. And they splice them. So you
Mm.
get a little bit of a
Mhm.
vibe of both, which is,
Mhm.
I mean, to me, pretty masterful storytelling. So the fact that
Yeah.
people are having these conversations and theories about this is kind of just like, oh, like we're playing into, what they want us to play into with the story.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to me, I kind of lean, although those are good points. I kind of lean more that she's not that interested in him, just because I feel like that scene, again, my favorite scene, which is the whole they're at the party and then she has that conversation and she, and at that part and at the party, she's like, kill me, and then, acts tripping out. She kind of implies something along the lines about like having like she basically incests with someone who's like her brother, and she kind of looks at Bear. And then also, not to mention, you have the what's her face, now I'm forgetting her name, the girl who likes Bear, who kind of also mentions that she kind of sees him as a friend. Now I know there's debates like, oh, she could just be saying that to play with to make Bear be more interested, like to lie to Bear to get her more interested in all that. But I also just feel like the way she's acting, because the fact that she doesn't trust um the fact that she doesn't trust Nikki, whatever. I feel like there's sort of like she sees Bear as this kind of like brotherly dynamic. But to be fair, I do think that in that moment, because you, like you said, they play both scenes. I don't think it's impossible for her to, like you said, OC, to eventually grow feelings for him, assuming that he acts more
Yeah.
confident and whatever. So I
Yeah.
don't think she's wrong open to the idea, but at the same time, I still think she's like not like that interested
Yeah.
in him as the way, at least that he's interested in her. So
And
that's what I'll say.
that's really the
Yeah,
tragedy of it, is that, her
I
agency
mean,
was taken before we could even really figure out what was
right.
true.
And she's
And I think you
actively
make
Mhm.
it,
messing with a friend at the same
yeah.
time, so like that's also an
Yeah, well, that
aspect.
plays to
Yeah.
your point. Like she was talking about like that like incestuous poem. It's like they are an incestuous friend group because they're all friends and she's sleeping with like Bear's friend already.
Hmm.
And like, their incestuous friend groups exist where everyone is like sleeping with each other and da da da. And
Yeah,
it's like,
that's a
and she's
comic trope
taking
in
it,
every
she's like,
TV show.
yeah, and she's like taking it very literal and like, in a horror fashion. But
Yeah,
yeah, it all comes together.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Trying to think. I feel like I had one more theory. Um, okay, I guess how do you think it's gonna like what do you think is gonna happen to Nikki at the end?
I don't know,
She's probably going to jail.
yeah, just like the
Okay,
original ending of Get Out.
Yeah.
okay,
Something really hopeless and mean-spirited.
okay. So I have a take that she can get out of jail, but most likely she is gonna go to jail. But my take is that like basically, so we know that technically the real Nikki was kind of seeing everything going on, even though she kind of couldn't do anything and had moments where
Mhm.
she was out. So I think it's possible that she gets like, let's just say the lawyers whatever gets her or whatever, she could try to get one of them to make a wish for her to say like, I wish, you know, I forget about the whole, or everyone forgets about the whole thing, and then all of a sudden, you know, she's free out there. So that's just my little like head canon of a
Yeah.
possibility. As well as there's $1 billion on the other side. So the creator did mention there's still $1 billion
Sure.
out there. So
Y-
that's my head canon, but you know.
They mentioned it's been said that there's going to be a sequel to Obsession, and that the actress that plays Nikki, Inde Navarrete, is poised to return.
Okay.
So it's more likely than you think, like either of these theories. I like when a horror sequel goes like jumps the shark. Like, I mean, I'm talking like Evil Dead 1 to Evil Dead 2, when it just like gets bigger and crazier and campier, or Smile to Smile 2, where like the universe like opens up and like all this crazy stuff happens. So I would like to see, I don't know, I don't think this is like canon, but I would like to see maybe a little more insight into like, maybe it would be funny if like the One Wish Willow product was part of like a bigger corporation, and maybe like you have like these people working there and they're just like you and me, and they kind of know that the corporation's evil and they're like
Oh
whatever,
yeah.
and you have this whole
Yeah.
department that's like cover-ups or something like that, and like
Yeah.
they're doing some research and they find Nikki and like something happens. But I think I would like to like juxtapose this with like a corporate, almost like Severance style, like, oh my gosh, we're the team that deals with the One Wish Willow incidents kind of thing, or like the hazmat
Dude,
suit guys in the back rooms, like pay homage to that, like something like
Yeah.
that would be really
they
fun to
need
see.
some.
And I think they
Crossover.
could do it because the
Yeah,
guy
I
has
would
a
love to see
comedy
that.
background. He does comedy horror skits with his friends, the director.
Yeah.
And yeah, it could be something special. I hope it's something special,
Yeah, shout out to them. I've seen their comedy sketches on like social media all
Yeah.
the time. I've seen them for years, and so like to hear the story of like how they kind of came together and made this film and
Yeah,
like it blew up. Kudos, hats off to those boys.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, to
yeah,
the
man.
young ones. Young
The young
guns.
ones, both directors young. The Backrooms is 20, and this guy was 26. So it's
Mm,
really good to see
Oh
these
my
young
god.
talent carry it. So
that's awesome.
yeah, man.
Crazy.
But any last thoughts?
I said everything I wanted to say. I'm
Same.
just
For
like,
sure.
I'm happy that they both came out around the same time. It's just lightning in a bottle. Loved it.
Yeah,
Lightning
Absolutely.
struck
yep. I'm
twice, lightning in a bottle, whatever you want to call it.
exactly. Yeah, I'm happy that they saved cinema. Like, I feel like, I mean, there's a lot of movies that also helped, but these movies definitely helped push people to go into
Yes.
theaters, and I'm happy to see that. And
Yeah.
you
And they
know, I'm
injected an interest and incitement into the horror genre, which I love personally. And I know there's going to be a bunch of like shitty knockoffs, but even like as a horror fan, I'm excited by that too. It's almost like, horror fans are sometimes excited by like a movie, the shittier it is sometimes. Yeah.
all right, but let us know your thoughts about both of these films in the comments. Which one you love? Which one? Any other movies that could have been also in this contestants? And I guess we'll see you to next one time. Peace.
All right. Peace.